Today we're making homemade smoked sausage, but the key element in this recipe is roasted garlic. Not raw garlic, roasted. Roasting completely transforms the flavor. It becomes softer, slightly sweet, and much deeper. Let's start with the garlic. I start by trimming the top of the garlic bulb, just enough to expose the cloves. Then I drizzle a little olive oil over the top, making sure it gets into all the cloves. I roast it at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 40 minutes until the garlic becomes soft, golden, and lightly caramelized. This is where the magic happens. If I leave the garlic in the oven a little longer, it becomes even softer, almost creamy, and I could easily turn it into a smooth garlic paste. But for this recipe, I actually prefer a bit of texture. I like when you can find small pieces of roasted garlic in the sausage. So instead of making a paste, I finely chop it with a knife. That way, the garlic stands out just a little more in every bite. For the meat, I'm using slightly chilled pork shoulder and about 20% beef. I cut the beef into small cubes first. This portion, the beef and some of the lean pork, about 30% in total, goes through a 5mm plate. This will help build the protein matrix, which is key for a proper bind and texture. The remaining pork goes through a 9mm plate. That gives the sausage a more defined, meatier texture. It's a simple step, but it makes a big difference in the final result. Now I place the meat into the freezer, just long enough to bring the temperature down to around 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. Keeping the meat cold is a critical step. It helps prevent fat from smearing and avoids any unwanted moisture release during mixing. In sausage making, temperature control is everything. This step makes a big difference in the final texture. Now I'm weighing all the ingredients. Kosher salt for flavor and protein extraction. Cure number 1 for color, safety, and that classic cured taste. Phosphate improves water retention and gives a firm, juicy texture. Sugar balances the salt and rounds the flavor. Black pepper adds warmth and depth. White pepper brings a smoother, more subtle heat. Garlic powder enhances the overall garlic flavor. Nutmeg adds a mild, classic deli-style note. Coriander gives a light, slightly citrusy touch. Ginger powder adds a gentle background warmth. Each ingredient plays a small role, but together they build the final flavor. By the time I finish measuring the spices, the meat is nicely chilled. Now it's time to grind. This is where everything starts to come together. Once the ground meat is ready, I place it back into the fridge to keep it cold. In the meantime, I rinse the casings under cold running water, making sure they are clean and ready to use. Here's a small trick. I add a couple of teaspoons of baking soda to the water. This helps the casings stay slippery so they don't stick to the stuffing tube. It makes the whole process much easier to work with. Now I'm building the protein matrix. I take the lean portion of the ground meat and add all the spices, along with a bit of cold water. Then I mix it thoroughly. What I'm looking for here is proper protein extraction. the mixture will become sticky and start forming glossy strands. That's exactly what I want. Now I add the protein matrix back into the rest of the ground meat. Then I mix everything together carefully until the mixture becomes sticky and tacky. That's the sign the bind is ready. Once the meat reaches that texture, the sausage mixture is ready and I can move on to stuffing. I stuff the casings firmly, but not too tight, so they don't tear. I also try to avoid any air pockets. A smooth, even fill makes a big difference in the final result. Now I remove any remaining air pockets and tie off the ends with butcher's twine. At this point, everything is ready. Now I can move on to cooking and smoking in the smokehouse. Now it's time to cook and smoke the sausage. I start with the drying stage. At around 30 to 35 degrees Celsius with no smoke. This helps dry the casing and prepare it for smoking. Next is the pre-cooking stage. I raise the temperature to about 55 to 60 degrees and bring the internal temperature up to around 45 to 48 degrees Celsius. Then comes the smoking stage. I increase the temperature to 65 to 70 degrees and apply applewood smoke. I let it smoke for about 30 to 60 minutes until I get a nice rich color. Finally, I finish the cooking. I raise the temperature to 75 to 80 degrees Celsius and cook until the internal temperature reaches 68 to 70 degrees. At this point, the sausage is fully cooked and perfectly smoked. Once the sausage is fully cooked, I cool it down quickly, bringing the temperature below 30 degrees Celsius. This helps stop the cooking process and keeps the texture just right. After that, I hang the sausages at room temperature for about 1 to 2 hours. This allows them to dry slightly and develop their final color and flavor. That's a really nice texture. Firm but still juicy. The aroma is rich with a smooth roasted garlic note. Everything is well balanced and the flavor really comes through. Highly recommended. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I really appreciate it and it helps the channel grow. Feel free to check out more recipes on my channel. Thanks for watching.